Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Talking Cardboard. I'm Corey.
I'm John.
And I'm Nick.
And this is our first segment in our top 10 favorite games of all time. Games 10 up to number 6. Let's get started. Yes, here we are, the cream of the crop, the best games of all time in our opinion. Games 10 up to number 6. Let's start off with game number 10 with Nick.
So, my number 10 game goes to Zombicide Black Plague. Now, I would replace this with any of the Zombicide games. There's now more than I'm probably even aware of. They keep releasing new versions. Obviously, there was the original Zombicide, which was kind of modern day theme. I know they came out with a second edition of the original Zombicide, and then there's the superhero theme one. There's Space Invaders, which I also have actually. All of them more or less do play the same from my experience, but I specifically really enjoyed the theme of Black Plague, which is kind of a medieval version of Zombicide. Cooperative game. It's just a dice chucker. Easy for new players to pick up because there's only a couple things you can do on your turn. You're moving, you're rolling dice for attacking the zombies, and it's a fun game in my opinion because there's just not a lot of thinking you have to do on your turns, and it's one of the few, I think, kind of adventure style games that you can play with a larger group of people and it not seem like you're not doing anything for a long period of time because the turns go relatively quickly. So for those reasons, I have Zombicide as my number 10. And yeah.
The sign of a great game for Nick is minimal thinking. You heard it here first.
And Zombicide used to be a mainstay in the Talking Cardboard collection way back when. We since haven't got it to the table much, but I think we also played the Black Plague version. That was kind of the one we always gravitated to, and with the Horde and whatever expansions,
the Green
that was pretty
Horde
sweet.
and all that. Yeah. And I'm interested in the Marvel Zombies one that just came out. Kind of flips the script where you're the actual zombies going after the Marvel superheroes, which is cool. All right, I guess moving into my number 10 is this game here, Cyclades. It is in the trilogy of games, the Matago trilogy, where there was Cyclades and Kemet and Inish, I think, was a part of that. But Cyclades is my favorite of the three. We've had a blast playing this every single time. We haven't gotten to the table in quite a while because there are just so many games to play out there, but every time we've played this, it's just a ton of fun. The main thing I like with Cyclades is that it's got a bidding mechanism over the actions you're doing, and if you are outbid, sometimes you have to get bumped off to like a suboptimal action.
You should know what this is very well.
Apollo, yeah. So Apollo is the worst action in the game, and I've gotten bumped down to that many, many times. But it is area control. It's another very streamlined game where you're just bidding over the actions, and then whatever action you're taking is the action you're going to do. As far as like sending out ships or sending troops to these different islands, and basically just simplified area control. So a ton of fun. I'm a very mechanisms-driven gamer, and Cyclades, for it being kind of the dudes on a map, area control style, still has some unique mechanisms to it that bring it to the table often for me. So that is Cyclades.
Neat. Love it.
Yeah. On to you. You're number 10. Use the Force.
Yeah.
All right, what we've got here is Star Wars Rebellion. I had to have at least one Star Wars game crack the top 10, and oddly enough, it is a two-player hidden information probing kind of game. If you haven't played it before, basically you're taking on either the side of the Empire, where you're building tons of units and scouring the galaxy for the hidden Rebel base. Otherwise, you are playing as the Rebel player, which, oddly enough, you're trying to keep your base hidden and kind of, nip away at the Empire's power during the game. And yeah, that's really all there is to it. But I think it captures a really good feel with the missions and the units in the game of the galactic struggle between the Rebellion and the Empire. And yeah, I think it's a blast. And we usually get it to the table around Star Wars daytime frame.
Yeah, a game that didn't make my list, but I really, really love this game. One of my favorite two-player games of all time. And like you said, it's not just build troops and attack one another. There's actually some other missions and things going on and events going on that make it unique. Star Wars in a box.
Yeah.
And I should caveat, too, that the expansion that added the Rogue One stuff really upticked this game for me, and that's probably what got into my top 10, to be honest. Just really adds and streamlines elements of the game. So.
Yeah, I think the game does a fantastic job of really illustrating that fine balance of the strength of the Empire, but also in terms of tons of units that the Empire starts with in the game, but also still giving the Rebellion a chance to win the game via the way that you win the game as a Rebellion. Just make sure you have a few guys on your home base.
I was going to say, hot tip, do not leave your secret base undefended with 0 people.
John has
The
never done
Empire
that
could
before, but we're just saying.
Happenstancely,
Haphazardly.
haphazardly, yeah, words are hard.
Yeah.
End up in your secret base out of the blue. So.
Yeah. It's kind of a tough balance, though, too, because you don't necessarily want to throw all your troops at your rebel base because you're hoping it doesn't get found. But when it does, you want to make sure it's well guarded. So,
Yep.
Those were our number 10s. Let's move into number 9. All right, on to our number 9s, starting this time with John. What's your number 9?
That part. My number 9 is Clank Catacombs, a game that actually kind of technically just came out in 2023, I guess. Mm-hmm. It was kind of right on the fine line of releasing just before New Year's, and I think the first time we got a table was actually New Year's Day when we kind of had a game marathon. Oh, yeah. But Clank, the series of Clank games is at its heart a deck builder / dungeon delver push your luck game. You're essentially trying to go down into the catacombs in this game, explore your way around until you find an artifact, and then you're trying to grab that artifact and make your way back out to the surface to really maximize your points in this game. The spin that Clank Catacombs does versus the other games is that the dungeon or catacombs themselves are all varying tile pieces that you're just randomly sorting, and then you just reveal as you search the cavern, and it changes every time, so you don't have a static map like the previous versions of Clank. I also really like the deck building aspect. Really like deck builders in general, and Clank is definitely one of the best out there.
Yeah, definitely. Yep, and Catacombs does change it up quite a bit with those moving tiles and the randomness a little bit, and yeah, in my opinion, probably the best version of Clank out there to date. They've really evolved on the whole concept of it. So.
Yeah, I think I'm more partial to the original, but I want to try Clank in Space because I've tried the original Clank Catacombs, and I know there's Clank in Space.
Space is real good too.
And I bet the Legacy one's kind of fun, right? You guys.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
That was good too.
But it's a good system.
All right, get that out of here. My number 9, moving into the 9th best game in the entire galaxy, Rurik Dawn of Kiev. This one, we don't get to the table very often because I think, obviously, I'm the one who enjoys it most out of our gaming group, but I wish we did get it to the table more because of the simple fact that it is kind of another dudes on a map type area control game. You know, definitely area control has evolved into one of my favorite mechanisms or one of my favorite game types of all time now, and this one does it in a unique way where it's got an action board laid out where you're mustering troops and you're attacking and you're trying to gather resources from these different lands, but it's done in a way where each player has advisors that have different numbers on them, and depending on the value of the advisor, the higher the value, the earlier you get to go in the sequence of actions. You're also trying to gather coins, and you can add coins on top of your advisors to add to their strength, the advisor's strength. And it really plays into kind of that trying to guess what other players are going to do during that round and what advisors you're going to put where. Because if you get bumped down far enough, you have to start paying for your actions, and not only paying for them, but the actions become so minimal where it might not even be worth doing anymore at all. So you're really trying to balance that with everything else going on. And yeah, it's another kind of simplistic game on the surface. I do have the expansion for it, which does add quite a bit to it, and we haven't gotten that to the table yet, but I really want to try that. That's the Stone and Blade expansion. But yeah, base game alone, again, with the advisor mechanisms on the main action board, it's a ton of fun. So that is Rurik.
Do you know where Kiev is?
Yes, I do. All right, on to Nick.
Is it Hungary?
Geography lesson. Look it up, folks.
All right, my number 9 goes to the King's Armory, and it's unfortunate because I've not played this game now for a couple of years, but it's staying on my top 10 just because I really appreciated what this game did, which is provide a cooperative gaming experience to simulate the very traditional balloon style defend the tower type
like the Balloons
yeah,
app. Yeah.
Balloons app, which was a big as a computer game, I remember in middle school, high school for me. And this board game basically emulates that very, directly. It obviously has a medieval theme, so you and your other heroes, the other players that you're playing with, are trying to stop orcs and goblins and all sorts of different types of monsters from making the way all the way through the maze to your castle wall. The rules are pretty straightforward. Everything makes sense. Monsters move X amount of spaces. You can attack. You have different types of attacks, so you have to choose which one you want to use in your turn. You can buy upgrades. You can buy towers. You can buy upgraded different types of like assistant type of characters to help you out, like archers and swordsmen and healers. So just like the digital game, you can buy stuff between rounds, so it plays very similar to that if you're familiar with playing those types of games, and that's why I really appreciated the board game version. My one complaint is that the towers in this game that you're putting on the board are like almost made out of this like paper thin cardboard, and it did look like the guy that designed this game was going to make a second edition of this game, and I was hoping better quality of towers, because I'd probably even back that, just because the lack of quality of the towers bothered me that much. This is kind of like a mainstay of the game,
And because you back everything.
and I back too much. I'll agree
Or
with
too
that.
much, yeah.
Anyway, that's King's Armory, a game that hopefully we can play sometime soon.
Yeah, that'd definitely be fun. I know I spent a lot of time playing tower defense style games on PC video game type things, so seeing how that's brought to a board game environment would be really cool.
All right, Nick, so you're number 8.
Okay, so my number 8 is Xia, Legends of a Drift System, and there's a lot of things to say about this game. It's kind of a pick up and deliver at its core type of open world sandbox pick up and deliver space themed game where you and other players are in control of a spaceship, and you're trying to get the most victory points, and you can get victory points through all sorts of different ways, including just picking up materials and selling them, or you can blow up other ships. You can be either a lawful type of character and only do good things, but you also can be an outlaw and blow up your other player ships. You can blow up harmless transport ships that are carrying cargo, that sort of thing. So there's tons of different ways to achieve the victory points that you need to win the game, which makes this game a lot of fun. And also a game that I think the rules are pretty straightforward. The attacking rules in this game make a lot of sense. You just roll a die, and you do the number of damage that it says, and then defense is a single die roll, and you block the number that the die says, and you upgrade components of your ship, which is a lot of fun. That's a big part of the game. And then there's like a little mini puzzle game as you're trying to figure out how much cargo you can hold in your ship given the orientation, because every ship design is different. So there's a lot of stuff packed into this game, and definitely I think a lot of replayability too, just because there's so many ways that you can play this game every single time. So
yeah, I've definitely had a blast with Xia. Like the tile placement factor of, like you were saying, of the cargo and the equipment and gear you're putting on your ship. Kind of cool.
Yeah, for me, this is just fun in a box. I don't even look at it as being like a competitive who's going to win type of game.
Agreed.
For me, I just like go out there and explore and see what happens.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of fun with it for that.
And there is an expansion for this game, which I have as well, which does add. I wouldn't say it's a necessity to enjoy this game, but the stuff that the expansion has, I think, is definitely makes the game that much better. So that's something I want to mention too. But
yeah,
number 8.
Cool, good pick. Going into my number 8 here, Stefan Feld game, one of my favorite designers of all time, and Trajan is really high up there. Trajan is my number 8. Again, mechanisms in a box. There's so many different things going on with this game, and it's all driven by a Mancala mechanism. So if you like the Mancala game growing up, that is what this is based around. Everybody has their own player board. Mancala-like fashion. It's got 2 separate cylinders of different colors on each of the little call cups, and you're picking up everything that's in a cup and dropping one off at a time, and whatever cup you land in last is the action you can do. And then also some of the colors line up with the different tiles around your Mancala mechanism as well that you're trying to trigger for bonuses also. The different actions are basically you're just going to these different sections of the board. There's like a military section that you're trying to take control over different spots, build up these different, get more tiles to place around your player board, and then also it's basically just dry Euro. You're just essentially doing different things with different tiles to get victory points. I really like another unique mechanism in this game that you don't see. I haven't seen many, if any other games do it, where it's got a unique timer system. Based on the amount of action cylinders that you're placing around your Mancala board during your turn. That number of cylinders tells you how many time slots you have to progress on the track, and when that time gets all the way around the track, depending on the number of players, the length of track differs, then that is when a new token comes over for basically the timer of the game. So you can really see if you're ahead in points and you want to end the game, you might just choose one of your buckets of actions that has like 8 cylinders in it to progress that time track 8 spots just to end the game. And or if you want an extra turn, maybe that'll dictate what cup you choose for that reason too. So that is Trajan. A heavier game, a lot going on, but it all revolves around that Mancala mechanism.
Yeah, haven't played Trajan in a long time, but I like the theme, and I also like the variability and some of the actions. Like you said, there's a lot of dry Euro-ness, but you also have some area control on the side is one of the kind of areas you can go to.
Yep.
And you've got the scrolls that I think are like bonus end game points and stuff like
some
that.
Set collection with different cards. Yeah, a whole lot of mechanisms thrown into one box, but
a lot of avenues for victory.
Yeah, I remember my wife mentioning, I really like Mancala. I was like, Mancala, I know that's a mechanism in some board games. And I had played Five Tribes is the only game that I've played that has a...
Don't buy this thinking you're going to play Mancala, though. There's a lot more to it than that.
I know, I'm sure. I'm just... But that's what I would like about it. I would rather not get a game that has that mechanism.
It is very interesting to think about it, though, in that mental capacity of the Mancala bead dropping. So
Yeah. Five Tribes is another great one for Mancala, but
it just
I would
sounds heavier.
Trajan is definitely heavier, but I'd say both games are fantastic. I would start maybe with Five Tribes, and if you really enjoy that, jump into something like a Trajan. Mm-hmm. But yeah, a ton of fun. Either one, yeah. So moving on to John here.
My number 8 is a game that's going to be familiar to a lot of you who've watched our channel since the get-go.
We've played it right every time.
We've played it definitely right until about finally a year ago, where we definitely learned how to play it even more right. So that game is Blood Rage, and this is probably one of the first area control card drafting games that I ever played. And not only does that make it a special game in my mind, but I also really like the theme. The gameplay is solid. You're basically taking on the chieftain of a Viking tribe, and you're trying to go and do some area control on... I can't even remember. Is it... you're not on Yggdrasil. That's one of the spots.
The central part. Yeah.
You're trying to go onto the board, control these areas. They give you different victory points based on when combat's initiated there. You can recruit monsters, boats... ogre type things. There's a ton of stuff you can recruit and just bolster your forces with. And yeah, like I said, it's card drafting and area control at its heart. The card drafting is really cool. The cards get progressively better as you play through the rounds, and there's a lot of strategies that can kind of be created using the cards that you get. They either boost your combat, so if you're going for combat points, you go that direction, or you can get points for sending your guys to Valhalla, which is essentially you want them to die in combat. That's pretty neat.
Get some glory for death.
Yep. So really, really good game, and I think technically as an expansion that brings it up to a 5-player game, which we've definitely played before. Yeah.
And with Ragnarok going on too, the board is ever shrinking.
Yep. Yeah. Can't forget about Ragnarok, because that is definitely a space on the board is going to get hit with Ragnarok every round. And obviously there's strategies that play into that, because if you're trying to get your units to die or try to take control of that spot before it gets removed from the board. If you were building a ton of troops in this game and not winning any combat at all, you can gather low-key objective cards and just try to kill off your troops for points. Yep.
So if you're doing poorly or playing well, you can play to either strategy, and that's what makes it a lot of fun too. Have you had experience with Blood Rage?
We played it one time a couple
wow.
years ago now.
Okay.
I think it was during during Extra Life?
Yep,
The Extra
definitely.
Life.
24-hour
So-
marathon thing? Yeah. Which I think we skipped last time during the marathon, so we'll have to get that back to our next marathon, or sooner, because Blood Rage is awesome.
Yep.
So good pick. All right, John, on to number 7. What do you got?
Number 7 is a change of an era. This is a game that has always been in like my top 3, and it has finally dropped this year to number 7.
No.
And that game is Queen Domino. Again, one of the first games we probably ever played, and its simplicity and the tile placement mechanics, along with the draft mechanics of this, really have just stuck through me forever. And it's a game I've recommended to new gamers, expert gamers, or more, involved gamers. But
Number 7?
it is a blast. It is quick and easy to play. It is more nuanced than King Domino. Just love this game, but at its heart, tile placement. You're trying to match regions on your board and place tiles in a way that maximizes the points you're getting at the end of the game. And yeah, just a blast.
The simplicity really shines for me in this game, and the tile drafting mechanism in this game really shines for me too. How cool
Yeah.
that is. Hopping back and forth. The better the tile you choose, the later in turn order you go the next turn. So you gotta, that balance between that is what shines for me in this too. So, and have we played Queen Domino in a while with you two?
It's been again
Yeah.
a year or two, but I remember thinking I liked the added features of Queen Domino compared to King Domino.
Yeah.
It's a little more
Yes.
so yeah. I like
It adds a little bit more to the advanced
King
game.
Domino is just pretty much straight up tile placement
yeah.
with none of the special tiles built in or the queen itself as a factor.
probably a good entryway game. King Domino is probably a good entryway game.
Yep. And this
And
is
then-
a slight step up.
Yeah.
Although you could probably just jump right to here.
Yeah.
I've had new gamers get this and love it, and
Yeah.
I'm probably owed some kind of
Compensation.
compensation at this point for how many people
Some
have recommended
royalty.
this, yes. But,
Oh, your name is on the box. What edition is this?
just put my name
Third
on there.
edition?
That's all I ask.
Yeah, John.
John Seal approval.
Great game. Unfortunately, it's finally just dropped out of that top 5, and it's at number 7 still. So pretty respectable still.
Still top 10.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, into my number 7, it is another game that I think everybody hates except for me and one of my brothers, or a couple of my brothers at least. But
Love this game.
Yeah, John loves it. One of his favorite. It might be mentioned later on the list here. Terra Mystica, my number 7, a really really heavy, dry Euro game. Where I think the shining token in this game is the asymmetric player powers. The player boards are all completely asymmetric, but essentially you're all trying to do the same thing. You're trying to build out your colonies and your villages and your towns more efficiently than your opponents. To basically get victory points. Every round you have different bonuses that you're going after that kind of change up the game too. And you can see the bonuses coming up for each round before you get to that round, so you're trying to build up to put yourself in a position where you're going to maximize on those points. It's got some tracks too, some Euro, classic Eurogame tracks that you're progressing on to get points as well. So that's not as interesting, but some of the things you're doing, you're building up from smaller buildings to larger buildings, and like I said, each faction does that differently, but you also have a really cool mechanism in this game where everybody has this power track. So yeah, with the power mechanism in this game, when you gain power, you have to take it from the first area, the first bucket, move it into bucket number 2, and then eventually into bucket number 3 before you're allowed to spend it. So trying to find ways to get that maximum power turn is really cool and really neat. Like I said, very very tight game, so there's some turns where you just kind of box yourself out of being able to really do much, and that can be kind of disappointing for some people. But if you can just barely kind of squeak out a really cool combo with your turn, that is what really shines in Terra Mystica. I also just rebought Clans of Caledonia, is another game that's very similar to this. Got it back to my collection after selling it a few years ago because I realized I just missed it that much. But that's a very similar game that might eventually take the spot of Terra Mystica. But again, I have multiple expansions for this game and just really, really enjoy it anytime I play it with people who are willing to play it with me. So that is Terra Mystica. On to your number 7.
All right. My number 7 goes to Star Wars Imperial Assault. So this is
Never heard of it.
yeah, this is not as much maybe as Star Wars in a Box as Rebellion, but close to Star Wars in a Box because it contains all the key characters and all the Star Wars stuff that you've come to know and love from the original trilogy. This is a one versus many game, so there is a player that serves as the dark side, and then all the other players are different types of heroes for the Rebellion of all the different types of races, humans, and then the
Got all the aliens. You got Rhodians and Aqualish. There's tons of names. Wookiees.
I knew John would.
I could list them all. Calamari.
So, but what the important thing to know that I at first was disappointed about is you're not playing like the actual hero. You're not Han Solo. You're not Luke Skywalker. Those guys show up in the game. It can help you. Can help the Rebel players, but you're playing these kind of random. They're not like actual heroes in any of the canon. But
these heroes would never get played if the main heroes were in the game, I think. So it's kind of cool to take on the role.
Yeah, and it works. And at the end of the day, it works. It makes you, and it's a campaign game, so you don't just play one mission and you're done. You do have to kind of commit to playing several missions at a time if you really want to. You
could one
off, but to get the full experience, you kind of want to do the campaign. And there's tons of expansions for Imperial Assault that you would want to check out too if you ever get into this game. But it's very thematic, relatively easy to learn. I like the dice and how the dice combat works. You have ranged dice to kind of simulate the accuracy with a ranged attack, and then you have surge icons that allow you to do different abilities with your attacks and defense. And that's Imperial Assault.
I both love and hate that game sometimes because I love trying to figure out how to overcome the missions, but the game is hard, and it is purposely hard because the Empire is strong and big, and you are just some Rebellion operatives, and it is challenging. There are a lot of defeats, not a lot of victories, but you still progress and get stronger, and I think the game really plays out in a fun and interesting way, win or lose. So,
yeah. You can lose it still.
Makes you want to come back for more.
Yes,
if it were too easy, so what?
Yeah. And one thing I want to point out is there is an app that allows you to basically play this game fully cooperatively. The app will then play the dark side for you. It's one thing to consider with this game. I've tried that before myself, and actually my friends and I, we played on Tabletop Simulator actually, and we enjoyed using the app. So that's another way to play this game too. So
cool.
Imperial Assault.
Awesome. All right, and on to number 6, rounding off the list for today's video. We're going to start with Nick on this one.
So for my number 6, I have to go with Gears of War, the board game. Now, I feel a little bit of like a poser because I never really played Gears of War, the video game.
Shame.
I know, I'm sure. Well, but I was an Xbox guy. I was PlayStation, right? That was an Xbox game.
Yeah.
At least for a while. Anyway.
Oh, you were not an Xbox.
I was not an Xbox person.
Oh, okay.
So
makes more sense. We'll allow it.
Yeah, thank you.
For now.
So, but this, I think, if you played the video game and you played this, I'm sure you would agree it does a great job of simulating the video game. It just simulates a first-person shooter style video game in general extremely well, in my opinion. And it's the mechanics are very smooth. There's not a lot of crunchy stuff that you're doing between turns. The gameplay is very quick, even though there's a lot going on. It's fully cooperative. That's another reason why I like this game. And your teammates can play cards on your turn to kind of help you out too. So there's definitely camaraderie throughout the game. And I love how you can pick up the weapon. There's mechanics to pick up the weapons of the guys you're killing, which seems very like first-person shootery. You can find cover in this game, and the cover rules are very simple but effective because, of course, in a lot of first-person shooter games, you're trying to find cover.
Especially in Gears of War, and picking up your teammates. Yeah, that's a big thing.
So,
but I hear the graphics are better in the video game than in this real life.
Yeah, they're a little flat. The graphics are a little flat.
That was kind of the big deal when it first came out, right? And that's how beautiful the graphics are.
Yeah, it definitely was a mind-blowing experience.
I hear about this game, or you talk about this game a lot, and we still haven't
We've never played it.
Yeah, I know.
With me and John and...
It's actually, the crazy part is, it's actually the reason that I first visited FFG Game Center. Because we were going to go there, we were going to play Gears of War, And then we got there and we didn't play Gears of War.
Well, one of the biggest tragedies too with this game is I think there could have been a lot of expansions released for Gears of War, the board game, and for whatever reason, Fantasy Flight must have just not kept the license, or they weren't allowed to keep the license because they came out with the core game, this little mini card expansion, that was it. And the game was done. They haven't printed it since, so it's a hard game.
They
to get a hold
actually
of.
just printed a card game.
Yes, I did see that. Yeah, it's like a deck building
Yep.
kind of card. So I'd be curious how that plays, but
Interesting.
But the other thing I want to say, how the levels work too. You like have to get through the map, and then before you can open up another section of the board. And I thought that was also kind of innovative. I've not really seen that in many dungeon crawler type games since Gears of War.
But it is fully co-op, and that's the only mode, right?
Yep.
That's cool.
Yep.
Very cool.
Gears of War.
All right, cool. Moving in my number 6, a really big box, heavy physically and heavy strategically game. Ark Nova just came out within like the last year. We've gotten it to the table a few times, surprisingly, in the last year. And I say surprisingly because it is a long game, it is a heavy game, and sadly one that I wish we could table more. I think it's just, 3.5 hour gameplay. You just can't get it to the table every game night. But when we do, it's a lot of fun. You're building out your own zoo. Very, very thematic. You're trying to build your zoo to be thematic as well with the cards you're playing, the different enclosures you're getting, and you're trying to really kind of fish for that combo of animals with your zoo to combo best to basically get points. And in this game, you're getting points in a couple different ways. I'm trying to think of what they call the 2 different tracks. I don't remember exactly, but it's got a really cool system in this game where you saw in Rajas of the Ganges was the other game where you've got 2 different points mechanisms that are going opposite directions, and as soon as they cross, that is signifying the last round of the game, and whoever can cross their tracks the furthest wins the game. So there are a lot of people that end the game with negative points if they weren't able to cross their 2 versions of points, and there are some people that were able to cross it. Whoever crossed it further wins. But also another cool thing, I'm very mechanisms driven. I'm going to say that about every game, but the mechanisms with the card play in this game are awesome. It's got a card row of 5 different cards, and when the card furthest to the right has a more powerful action associated with it because it is further to the right in front of your player board, but then when you play that as an action, it jumps all the way down to the weakest card slot and everything else gets bumped up to a stronger card slot. And trying to do the math in your head and the puzzle in your head to, I'm going to play this because I can get this card up to the correct power level that I need to pull this off is really cool all in itself, let alone with some of the polyomino tile placement and different combos you're getting with the cards. And I guess the one negative I've seen people say is that obviously if you're trying to fish for a certain combo of card or a certain animal and it's just not coming up and then it comes up for somebody else that plays into their strategy, sure, yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a negative point, but they are coming out with an Aquamarine expansion here soon. That's kind of a smaller expansion that will help mitigate that a little bit to where you can actually clear out the row of cards and really get what you need to combo. So I am excited for that expansion, and it's definitely going to be an auto buy for me.
Yeah, and one thing I really like, not going to be a shocker, but all the player mats, your zoo, are unique and have special abilities on them, and you're trying to tile place your little pens and exhibits within it, and that's how you're getting a lot of points as well, is depending on how you're filling out your player board with those
uniquely
exhibits.
building out your zoo.
So I think that's really cool, the tile placement aspect of it as well.
So I grew up a big fan of the Zoo Tycoon computer game, and there, in my opinion, there was a gap in the industry or the hobby for a good zoo, thematic zoo game, and then I think Ark Nova is the game that really scratches that itch. I've yet to play Ark Nova, but I think it looks awesome. I'm definitely
Probably should try it tonight.
Let's add that to the list. And I appreciate, it looks very thematic, but, Corey talked about that it's also mechanically sound, which is great. And my only thing I'll throw out there is I know then, interestingly enough, a few months ago, there was a Zoo Tycoon board game Kickstarter. Yeah. So I'm curious, I actually didn't back that. I was close to backing it, but I didn't back that. So I'm curious to see how that will end up comparing to Ark Nova and the pros and cons of each. But regardless, Ark Nova looks like a really fantastic game.
Very heavy on the Euro side of things, though. So I don't know how much it would appeal to. I don't know if the Zoo Tycoon game would appeal better or whatever that other one is called.
Yeah, exactly.
But I do want to try this out with you because everybody we've played with has really
Yeah.
liked it so far.
Of the games you've talked about, this seems like the one that has the strongest.
My cousin
theme
even
connection.
picked this up based on our recommendation, and it sounds like his gaming group absolutely loves it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a game that if you can spend the time to learn it and get past how complex it can be, it's really cool. And like the animals you're getting, like on the cards, I love how it corresponds with those enclosures on your
Yep.
map too, because like if a bird or let's say a certain type of animal needs an enclosure close to water or close to like a rock structure, you physically have to place that tile close to that in order to even have that
Yep.
card in your tableau. It's just cool how those
Yeah.
two things mesh. So anyway, on to yours.
Have two shocking games back to back. For anyone who's followed this channel, there's two things you should know. Queen Domino was a great game, and it's been with us from the start. And then you should know about the stain early on in our reputation as board gamers, and that came when a game came out called Root.
It's what we're known for.
Initially, we were all young. We didn't know how to play games. We tried Root when it first came out, and I'm pretty sure I gave it a 4 out of 10.
Yeah, and I wasn't much better.
We got a lot of really positive feedback, as you can imagine, on YouTube when we did that.
No negative comments.
But we picked it up about a year ago again, and I've bought everything Root related since then, and absolutely love this game. Now that I have a broader feel for board games, I'm the rules guy. I can pick things up easily as long as I read through it. The asymmetrical nature of this game is awesome once you understand how to play asymmetrical games.
Yeah.
Not so awesome if that's a lot to take in and try to remember all the various factions and how they work, but you just gotta give it time, learn the factions.
Well, let's be fair to ourselves. When we first got into the hobby, that is what the major turnoff was.
Yeah.
Like, you have to teach new players, well, especially new players, but even players who are seasoned playing Root, if they're playing a new faction, you have to reteach it and or relearn
Right.
a brand new system
Yep.
every single time.
Every time. But the asymmetry is one of the highlights of this game. Every single faction plays differently. The only faction I hate seeing on the game board is the Vagabond. They always seem to do well. It's so hard to slow them down. People usually let them just kind of do their thing and never really try to step on their toes. But I like the theme of this. You're just these cute and cuddly woodland creatures, but you're at war with each other. So it's kind of that cool juxtaposition of that. And yeah, I don't know.
The Otters are clearly the best
The
faction.
Uthers.
Probably, right?
Yeah, the Otters, they also tend to do well. Another one of those sneaky little factions where everyone's like, oh, I can make deals with the Otters. And then all of a sudden they have 30 points. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
that's what happens when you trade with them earlier in the game.
I didn't play that faction right then.
Yeah.
When
They have like an
play-
explosion of a turn late in
Yeah.
the game that just bumps them up
It's
to
like-
30. Yeah.
You guys can't be paying them so much.
So
But great game.
I reached out to Leader Games recently because they're based here in Minnesota
Yeah.
to maybe collaborate at the 2D Con that's going to be here in August. And the lady's like, "Oh, I saw you did a video of Root," and I was like, "Oh crap!" Did they? She's talking about the video.
We did a revisit.
Yeah, we did.
But that other one's still on the channel.
Yeah.
So Leader Games, listen to this. We
Number
like,
6 of all time.
yeah, number. And we're
And that's
and-
after 1 year of getting back to it. So
And for everyone else, we're not being paid to say that.
Yeah.
That's on our
No.
own volition. But what I want to mention about Root is I had my friends from college recently say, "Hey Nick, like that aren't into board gaming at all. They somehow heard about Root and like, oh, have you heard about Root? I'd like to play that sometime." I was like, "Oh yeah, let's play it." So we played that on Tabletop Simulator. John
Yep.
joined us on that because he has some experience and. They really loved playing that game, this game too, and I think that kind of goes to show that this is a game that can bring people into the hobby apparently.
right, and at its core, it's really just a area control type game, and you're getting points through destroying the buildings and tokens that your opponents
Yeah.
control,
But-
using the abilities of your faction.
That the extreme asymmetry of the factions and how they play so differently to me is like the biggest selling point because you
Yeah.
don't see that in a lot of games, unfortunately. Like when I play a game, I kind of like the idea that you have completely different sides that play completely differently because then it makes you want to play the game again as that
Right.
as the other side.
Right.
Like Rebellion, for example, we talked about, the sides are completely different. You're playing a different game when you're the rebels opposed to the Empire. So that's, and all the expansions, of course, with Root that have come out since. I'm sure.
Kind of, sort of, but this game does it like no other. I mean,
Real-
this is like,
really does.
hey, we're gonna play a sport, and it's called hockey, but I'm gonna play hockey.
Yeah.
But you're gonna play basketball.
Yeah, yeah.
You're gonna play baseball, but we're all trying to get the
Score
same
points.
Score points
Yeah.
in one way.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So yeah, crazy. Good pick. Love it. All right, that wraps up the video for this time. That are games number 10 up to number 6. Like I said, the cream of the crop. These games are all amazing. I would highly recommend any one of our lists because they're just that great, honestly. So stay tuned next time for next video where we go over games number 5 up to the grand number 1 all-time best game in the universe for our next video. And as always, if you like the content, like, subscribe to the channel, and leave comments below with your favorite games. We'd love to hear from you, and we will definitely respond to that. So until next time, you all have a great day.